There are lots of movies about fame, typically following the story of how a star's life changes once they gain notoriety, the toll it then takes on their mental health, and how the pressure of it all drives them to self-medicate. But a story that's rarely told is the most common story in entertainment. The quest for fame that never gets fulfilled. The actor that auditions for hundreds of roles but never lands the part. The musician that floats around the outskirts of the industry. The comedian in the club who gets a laugh here and there but can't earn a living. In some ways, the most painful experience isn't having no talent, but having just enough talent to warrant the pursuit, but not enough to actually succeed. Martin Scorsese's The King of Comedy may be over 40 years old, but in today's attention economy is still more relevant than ever. Not because its main character does everything right and still can't make it, but because he does everything wrong, and when the chips are down, discovers that having just one shining moment in the spotlight is worth more to him than anything else. Like any great fictional character, Rupert Pupkin symbolises an aspect of the human condition when driven to its extreme. Although we can laugh at him and dismiss him as crazy, in the same way he laughs at and dismisses Masha, there is an ingredient to Rupert's personality that's essential for anyone pursuing a seemingly impossible goal, a stubborn sense of self-belief that borders on delusion. There is no set path, only mythical advice that trickles down from the top. Dress for the job you want, not the job you have. That you have to ignore the doubters, the naysayers and critics, and not take no for an answer. That you need to network and be positive, visualize your goals, rehearse and perfect your craft, so that when that big break comes, you'll be ready. None of that is bad advice, and to some degree does play a role in success. But that advice isn't just consumed by those that stand a chance, it's also digested by the more delusional and desperate. And when you begin your pursuit, you don't actually know which category you'll end up falling into. Will your dream come true? Or was it always just a dream? Over the course of the movie, we gain a deeper understanding of why Rupert is the way he is, and even though we don't hear his material until the very end, through his social interactions, we can see why he isn't successful. As above all, Rupert Pupkin is a cautionary tale, a lesson in what not to do.
Yeah!
Screenwriter Paul D Zimmerman stated that he started to think about connections between autograph hunters and assassins, because both stalked the famous, one with a pen and one with a gun. And that's where Rupert's mistakes begin. Although he views himself as totally different and even above the obsessed fans waiting outside Jerry Langford's building, by placing himself among them, he'll never be taken seriously, as where and how we meet someone creates a strong first impression. But Rupert's key problem is demonstrated through his first conversation with Jerry, in which he fulfills both sides of the conversation, asking his own questions and providing his own answers.
So you're probably wondering now, yeah, if he's so good, then how come he hasn't caught my act somewhere, right? Well, that's a very good question, and I'm willing to answer it, and I'll tell you why.
This highlights that he's been rehearsing this exchange over and over in his head, and in order to deliver every point, he can't have any unexpected interruptions. This flies in the face of what a comedian's job is supposed to be. Yes, having material, but also flowing in the moment and reacting off the cuff to their ever-changing surroundings. But because Rupert fears rejection, he never exposes himself to the risk of failure, and instead tries to control every aspect of the discussion. This fatal flaw encompasses his personality, as just like Jerry recommends, if he truly wants to be a successful comedian, then he needs to start from the bottom. Go to comedy clubs, see what works, see what doesn't, prove his ability to himself and others, and over time, naturally rise the ranks. But Rupert doesn't want to do that, as in his delusion, he's convinced himself that he's simply more talented than everyone else, that he's the exception to the rule. He consistently gets the feedback from Jerry and his producers that once he's physically performing in comedy clubs, that they'll consider coming along to watch his act. And that's how the entertainment industry works. No one wants to hear that you promise you can do something if they hire you. They want to see that you can already do it, in front of the pressure of an audience, and most importantly, that the audience like you. Rupert has convinced himself that the audience will not just like him, but love him. once they're introduced to him the exact right way and on the exact right platform. He doesn't see that what he's actually looking for is a shortcut, the kind of shortcut even his idol never got. He essentially wants someone else to take a chance on him, even though he refuses to take a chance on himself, by putting in the work and risking failure. This delusion is a defense mechanism, and quite a common one at that. The more Rupert avoids finding out the truth of whether or not he's actually talented, the more he has to reinforce to himself that he's simply too talented to do things the normal way. It's as if the more reality informs him who he currently is, the more intense the delusion of who he's about to become grows. So much so that he's behaving egotistically, acting like someone who's physically earned his confidence to the point he's looking down on a bartender like Rita.
I love you. I want to help change your life if you just give me a chance.
Even though she's currently independent, while he's still unemployed and living with his mother. The further away he is from success, the more simple the dream appears. He's looking at his career like he can just immediately swap places with the guy on TV, not go through the steps it takes to get there. For instance, notice how Rupert seems to think that all it will take is one performance for him to suddenly become a star and be whisked away to Hollywood to live a dream life.
A comedy show of my own. The Rupert Pupkin show. Everything. And all that leads in one direction, Rita. Hollywood. A beach house in Malibu right on the ocean.
As opposed to someone more experienced who understands how complicated the business is and how much hard work, time and dedication it takes to achieve anything, let alone arrive at the ideal finish line. This is the difference between keeping your dream as a comforting fantasy and turning your dream into a reality. Actual success requires risk and failure, and in entertainment, it also requires developing a thick skin so that you can accept that not everyone is going to like you all the time. Contrast that with Rupert's fantasies, which are desperately embarrassing for us to watch because we see how far they are from reality. But if we're being honest with ourselves, they're also quite relatable, as a fantasy is a secret wish between you and yourself. It's not for others to see. This makes them pure and childishly idealistic. In Rupert's fantasies, once Jerry listens to his tape, he'll naturally conclude that he's the most talented comedian he's ever heard. Not just good, not just potential, but already dynamite. So much so that one day in the future, as best friends and peers, he might be so tired of the show that he begs Rupert to take over for 6 weeks. Or that the show will be so focused on his stardom that it could unexpectedly transform into his wedding with Rita, and the audience would actually love the opportunity to tune in for that. All of these fantasies are megalomaniacal delusions, but they inform us why Rupert is on this quest for fame in the first place. Rita is the girl he voted for as most beautiful in high school. The mystery guest on the show who turned into his celebrant is his high school principal that never believed in him. And in his final stand-up routine, he reveals that he used to get beaten up and bullied in school, and that his parents were alcoholics that never paid attention to him. So really Rupert needs fame and fortune to justify that all of his pain was worthwhile, and finally prove that they were wrong and he was right.
But we were wrong. And you, Rupert, you were right.
And that little smirk, that radiant feeling of self-assurance, is what drives his desperate behaviour every step of the way. He needs to be loved and adored by millions to make up for not being loved or respected by those closest to him. This is why once Jerry crushes Rupert's dream and rightly kicks him out of his holiday home, he's set himself up to have nothing left to lose. If he had been going to comedy clubs and really working on his career, then this would just be one of many potential avenues. But like so many dreamers, instead he's been waiting for someone else to give him his shot, and the only joy he actually experiences is from these fantasies. So if reality won't conform to his ideal, he'll have to force it to. And this is the ugly side to fame, that for some, if they can't just be famous, they'd still rather be infamous.
She said, "So what advice would you give to anyone else who wants to become famous?" And I went, "I'd tell them to go out and kill a prostitute." It's nothing to do with murder, it's a slight on fame. It's like going, well, if you just want to become famous, do something horrendous.
And sadly, there are so many real cases of people chasing attention, no matter the cost. Just look at Netflix's Don't Fuck With Cats, in which a failed model and aspiring reality TV star began suffocating kittens on YouTube, just so he could finally experience what it feels like to have an audience's undivided attention. And when that was no longer enough, he then uploaded a video of himself murdering a Chinese student to trigger a manhunt. All of this was so that, just for a brief moment, the media would come running after him like paparazzi, and the whole world would stop and finally want to know something about Luca Magnotta. In The King of Comedy, Rupert Pupkin takes his hero hostage and threatens to kill him unless the network put him on his show, introduce him in the most favourable way humanly possible,
So will you please give your warmest greetings to the newest King of Comedy,
and then let him perform the one 5-minute set he's been writing and practicing his whole life. Despite knowing he's going straight to prison afterwards, he's eerily calm, because for him it's worth it to finally know what your dreams could taste like in reality, even if it's only a single bite. The movie was released all the way back in 1982, and remains an uncomfortable examination of our obsession with celebrity culture and the lengths people will go to secure their 15 minutes of fame. And over the past few decades, rather than suppressing this instinct, we've only found more and more ways to accommodate it, with televised talent shows offering applicants their one big shot to change their lives, endless reality TV series further blurring the line between our personal lives and entertainment, until social media changed the game entirely, and now with the click of a button, anyone can start their own relentless campaign to be in the spotlight, weaponizing whatever they've got, whether it's beauty, controversy, or genuine talent. And yes, it could backfire. They could end up humiliated, cancelled, or ridiculed, but for a lot of people the risk is worth it, because just like Rupert Pupkin, they agree.
Better to be king for a night than schmuck for a lifetime.
Now if you made it this far, firstly, thank you for watching, but I need you to give the video a like, perhaps even drop a comment depending on your mood, and definitely subscribe so the algorithm will do its thing. And if you want to support the channel personally, you can check out my Patreon.